work with patterns, patterns, and more patterns. And we are going to make a crazy cactus with it. Or I guess you could make a succulent. And here are the supplies that you are going to want to find. Sharpie is very handy. Markers work great for this, but colored pencils will do also. Chalk, because I like to have a nice soft chalky background. Sidewalk chalk works great for this. Some glue and some scissors. Now you can get a white piece of paper for the background, or I guess you can use the grocery bags like we were in the past. Also, I used my grocery bag to make a nice vase for this, just because it's a little something different. So we're gonna work out a little collage here with lots and lots of patterns. All right, go get your stuff, and I'll meet you right back here. All right, to start our crazy cactus, we are going to make a horizon line. And most of you know right now that the horizon line is that line, an imaginary line, that separates the ground from the sky. Or if you're indoors, it tends to be where the floor and the wall are touching. So if it's an outdoor plant, this is where the ground and the sky are meeting. And then we can go ahead and give some color to the background. I think I'm gonna make the bottom part very neutral. So I'm taking this black chalk, and I'm not using it like a pencil. I'm not pushing down like this on a point. See how much dust that creates? We don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to lay it down on its side and push it along. It covers a larger area, but it does not cover every bit of white space, and that's okay, because what we're going to do is once I have covered it, then I can take a paper towel or a tissue and take little circles, and I'm going to just rub it. What this does is two things. One, it spreads out the color more evenly, and two, it gets rid of a lot of that extra dust. So yes, it will still smudge a little, but it won't be nearly as dusty and messy. So we want to be sure to rub this around pretty good. All right. So now that I have that done, now I can do my background up here. If I'm outside, I tend to think of it as like a sunny day. And I know this seems to be a theme with me, but I'm gonna stick with my warm colors, because since we're talking about a cactus, cacti are generally cooler colors, blues, greens. And so I want to have a nice contrast, meaning I want the background to show up really nicely. So I am going to go ahead and use warm colors. So I'm going to start, actually, I think I'm going to start with my red down here, laying it on its side. And because the sky is usually more than just one color, I'm going to do my sky not halfway, but about a third of the way. And then I'm going to start my orange. Now that we have our background, it's time to make our cactus paper. And what I've done is, honestly, you can use any kind of paper. You can use paper that comes out of the printer. You can use lined paper. You could even use paper that's sticky notes. And I have this paper that I use for my copier or my printer. And I'm going to, this is a quick way to, how shall I say, cut it in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take markers. This works kind of nicely with markers. And what I want to do is make different patterns, because as you know, the theme or the idea here is to have a crazy cactus. So cacti are usually cool colors. Now, because they're crazy, do they have to be cool colors? No, I don't think there's this hard and fast rule. So if you want to throw some warm in there, you can. But I'm going to pull out all the cool colors that I have, my blues, my greens, my purples. And with these, I can make different patterns. Now, as you might have seen on the examples in the beginning of this, there's a lot of different ways to make patterns. Patterns can happen with color, patterns can happen with shapes, lines, all kinds of things. And so, you know what? This is a nice, simple, striped pattern. So I'm using pattern, which pattern, by the way, means something that repeats. It's going to repeat in a similar way over and over. For example, I am doing what's called a classic A-B pattern. A-B, purple, blue, purple, blue, purple, blue. And if I wanted to have bouncing lines going across here, I could do something like that. Now, the thing that seems to work best is not, and I repeat, not to have a lot of white space. There's another one. Again, trying to cover up as much white as you can. I have a couple of little white spots showing, but not a big deal, really. And there's my version of some polka dots. I don't know, kind of looks like it could be fish scales. So now that we have our patterns, we're gonna start thinking about the next step, which is cutting out our cactus. Background out again, and now I'm going to make a pot or something to hold my cactus. Now my brown bags that I was using for some of those other assignments work really well for this. I always hold it up to where I'm gonna put it before I draw it, because that'll give me an idea of how large I should make it. Now before I put it on my background, I'm going to give it a fun pattern. I'm going to do this with Sharpie. You can either draw on the front side, or you can turn it over and draw on the back so that you can see the shape a little better. Now, you can hold your paper up. I want one of my cacti to be almost as tall as this entire paper. So I want to hold it up to my pot to make sure I'm filling it up. And I'm going to tuck some of it underneath when I glue it. So I'll just go all the way down to the edge here. So I'm going to first do that kind of cactus that's just tall and has those chubby arms on it, but it's curved on top. It almost is gonna look like a big pickle. See how wide I made that? You want it nice and chubby, okay? So I'm gonna cut that out. And I use the edge of my paper because I wanna save as much of that pretty paper that we took all that time to make as we can. So there's one part of my cactus. I can slip it right under there. Now he's going to need, or she, some arms. So I'm going to hold them up to my cactus, and I think I'll make a nice big one right over here. Come out and bend that little elbow, and then again, we don't want to stick. We want a nice big chubby one, kind of like that. So alrighty. Now, because I cut it on the back, it will go on the other side because I don't want it to be white. So that one will go right there. Once I get an arrangement that I like, then I can start gluing down. And so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I have quite a bit left over, so I'm going to save these pattern papers because I know I can use them down the road for other things. And now I'm going to take a Sharpie, and cacti are also known for, yes, being extremely pokey. So I'm going to give them these little V-shaped pokies on the outside of them. All right, so your crazy cactus could be done at this stage, but I myself love blooming cactus. And I happen to have tissue paper at my house. If you have tissue paper that came in a package or in a box from a store, or you can even go get some tissue out of the Kleenex box and use it. I cut it into these little squares, and then I'm just gonna kind of pinch it in the middle and do something like that. Well, I hope you had fun making your crazy cactus today and experimenting with different patterns. Now you can hang it proudly. That's all we have time for today, so I'll see you next time here at home with Mrs. Hockin. Bye-bye.